Namaste. Welcome to UGC E-Pathshala for Postgraduate Studies. I am Anita Khanna and I teach Japanese in Jawaharlal Nehru University. And today we will study from paper 15, the introduction of pre-modern Japanese literature, the module on the Barber houses of the floating world. Background: Ukiyo-buro, or the barber shop of the floating world, is one of the masterpieces of humorous books or kokkebon of Edo period. These were located alongside the bathhouses of the floating world, Ukiyo-buro. As we know, the public bath has been a part of the life of Japanese people, and in a city like Edo, the bathhouses were paired alongside the barber's shop, and the clients also regularly visiting such places of daily use and developed a sense of community or became like social hubs. The bathhouses of the floating world are well talked about subject, whereas today I will take up the topic of barber shops of the floating world. Objective: the objective of studying this module is to have a deeper understanding of these barber shops, which were a center place for interaction of all kinds of people, merchants, their servants, as well as other clients who would visit the barber shop after having a bath. Or it could be vice versa as well, because in this work there are instances when instead of waiting long for the haircut, the client opts to go to the bathhouse and take bath instead of waiting there. So through this work we can understand the variety of people, especially common people, visiting the barber shops and discussing or gossiping about social life of those days. Although there is no plot and continuity in this, it's a collection of episodes which are provided the unity in the sense of visitors to the barber's shops. About the author, Shikite Samba. The author of this work, Ukiyo Doko, or the barber houses of the floating world, is Shikite Samba. He came from a middle class merchant family, and this was the period when writers of popular fiction called Geisaku took it as their karma in the present world to entertain through their writings, with interesting writings based on the life of people, especially the townspeople. And a part of their daily routine of those townsmen were the public places like public baths and barber houses. Sure enough, he has scribed one work which is Ukiyo Furo. In other words, the bath houses of the floating world. And thereafter, he could not refrain from scribing another spot of the public interaction of the middle class or common people, which is the barber houses or the barber shop. Both his works, Ukiyo-Buro and Ukiyo-Doko, the bathhouse of floating world and the barber's shops of the floating world, were specially enjoyed by the educated urban people of Edo and presented with an attractive cover page with a catchy illustration. So, as a specimen of this unique age and the writer's unique style, we study the first volume of the work Ukiyo Doko, the barber shops of the floating world, which has 3 volumes. The first volume has a preface, and we study it through its English translation, Ukiyo Doko, Barber Saloons of the Floating World, or Barber Shop of the Floating World. The famous Chinese saying that the importance of anything depends on the utility of its beholder. At times, a cloth of a yard may seem less, whereas a tiny piece of 1 inch fabric may be too long for the purpose. And it goes on to describe about the barber saloons of China, stating, I read, now when it comes to the hairdo, styling, be it the hair saloons of Ming China called Tote Ten or barber shop of Japan known as Kamiyui Doko. The difference is only in the name, whereas the basic sentiments of people visiting these public places are the same. Needless to say that the fashion trends and styles may vary from time to time and place to place. Chinese, on one hand, admire dense but soft and silky baby hair in the style of a bonze. Now, what Chinese find elegant, Japanese may look down upon it and find the same style as uncouth or rustic. Likewise, people have different ways of looking at things, be it the Chinese scholars of Confucianism or Japanese scholars of national learning. Yet today, the Japanese specialist of Confucianism shower praises on Chinese scholarship and count on it, which is uncalled for. It is like taking pride unduly in others' possessions. In Chinese poetry, there is a famous poem on a lady's hair, and the Chinese praises the beautiful hair of lady using the metaphor, her shining silver hair 3,000 feet long. It is evident that the Chinese poet is eulogizing her hair and has used the length of 3,000 feet as a metaphor, which, according to the Japanese author, is in proportion to China's vast land. But the writer says that the Japanese learned people are critical of it, especially 3,000 feet long hair sound unrealistic. Here too, the Japanese learned men opine that such unrealistic metaphors are of no use, and giving example of a famous Japanese work, or rather a popular Japanese work, he points that in the work of Kokuji Kai, That explains the origin of Japanese characters and terminology. There they quote example saying that if a man with broad forehead, the writer goes on to point the case of a Chinese legendary character with a typical broad forehead who sacrificed his life to avenge his father's death as and was called Mikenjaku because of his broad forehead. Now, according to the Japanese learned man, if any man with a broad forehead is called Mikenjaku, our masters will be unable to react, or our masters wouldn't know how to react to it. Likewise, the one with long side locks, shiken bin. Long is shiken and side locks bin is called bin shiken. In other words, the name of 10, one of the 10 followers of Confucius, then our masters would be aghast. In the Japanese classical works, also there are such examples. For example, in Kojiki, there is the legend of Kaminaga Hime, a princess with long hair. She belonged to Omi province in Shiga prefecture, and her hair is described to be so long that it could be wrapped around Mount Kaneyama, Mount Kanayama 7 times. The folk song based on this theme became very popular hit. So much that people got fed up of it. The writer Shikite Samba continues. The Japanese scholars of national learning, Kokugaku, take pride in the imperial family as a symbol of Japanese spirit. One of the scholars of national learning claims that the term Kami Dono is abbreviation of Kami Yui Tono. Tono is a Japanese suffix to mean a lord, like Tono-sama. So, if we consider that, then the translation of this will be His Highness the Barber. Likewise, there is another synonym for a barber or a pen name or barber, which is Hitsuji. Hitsuji is sheep in English. So here the pun is made not because sheep is hairy, it has a lot of hair, but it has a different connotation. Now, what is this connotation? According to writer, the first letter he means day, implying that hair is done up daily, every day. Tsu of Hitsuji stands for moon, to indicate the lunar cycle of month, to imply the monthly payment contract with the barber as Japanese had. Now, what does G stand for? The author questions, any guesses? And then he comments, even the greatest master would be at a loss to answer this. And continues, well, let me explain. A barber is on his toes all throughout the day in order to do his job. This prolonged standing can cause the problem of piles. And that is why the pen name for barber is Hitsuji. In other words, for this daily job of hairdo, for which the payments are contractual, the barber has to stand for long hours and can have piles, which is implied by the word or the third letter G. He Tsu and Ji, three letters. The third meaning, blood, Chi or blood. The author goes on to give another explanation for this word of Hitsuji. According to him, Ji is the aspirated form of Shi, the latter meaning work or occupation, Shigoto, Shi. In Japanese, the extra sign that is used to make a letter voiced can also denote that the original letter Shi in this case is corrupted or spoiled. So here it denotes that the oil smeared clothes and turbid appearance of the barber because of the this job make him look like a sheep or sheepish. So in the text, Shikite Samba continues like this Hitsuji or sheep used to denote barbers could have a deeper connotation rather than the surface meaning of the word Hitsuji. The standard charge for visiting a barber shop is 32 mon, about 160 yen for one sitting. And for this paltry amount, one has to bear with the whims and fancies of each client. By visiting the barber's shop, one can have a glimpse of the life of the floating world of Edo, which is Tokyo. Each client has a freak taste, which is a statement of his personality. For example, Gikuya Itofu style of long hair as well as for short hair. The punchline is that everything has a utility of its own that is realized at the time of need. A Gisaku writer, in other words, a humorist, portrays the qualities and shortfalls, the complexities of human mind in a lighter way in order to make people laugh. In all humility, I must admit that I am a man of modest talent who has ventured on this long work with my tiny brush. Like a barber wets the brush, I also ink my worn out bald brush and begin to pen this volume while waiting for my turn at the barber's shop. Sure enough, the writer is pointing at the calligraphy for which one needs ink and brush, and which was the writing styles of most of the people. So the writer Shikite Samba gives the date of 10th May of 8th year of Bunka era. The 8th year of Bunka era corresponds to the year 1811. In other words, he starting penning this work on this day. And Ukiyo-doko was first in first volume was complete in Bunka 10th year, which is 1813. Shikite Samba's works present humor in two ways. In some works, the humor is prominent, whereas in others, the realism is preferred and it dominates. And ukiyo doko is the second type of work. It can be paired with the ukiyo-buro or the bathhouses of the floating world as well. Unlike the work called Bathhouses of the Floating Worlds or Ukiyo-buro. In this work, the focus or the locale is the barber saloons or barber's shop instead of public bath, and needless to say, it was especially the barber's or hairdresser's saloon was a center of the social life of those days, especially among the ordinary people, and so he has chosen the most appropriate setting for portraying the reality of the human mind. The characters, as well as the dialogues and style of language, is also lucid and lacks in depth. The characters speak. This story revolves around their dialogues, which are given in the form of short notes or dialogues, or rather, one can say, people in these works meet and part, but there is a short. Also, the writers of the age, as well as woodblock printers, were influenced by these locales, the sketches of barbers' shops, and a modern writer, Nagai Kafu, especially the has referred to it in his works.